Good evening, everyone. This is Bob Hendricks on Money Talks Radio. I'm here to share and also to plant more seeds of success so that you'll have a more abundant and lively lifestyle. The big thing that we're looking at right now when I speak to especially religious organizations and I meet the people there who are spiritually minded, or at least they say that they are all there to worship God. But we are in America, a capitalistic society, and you'll be surprised at the number of people that actually worship money. I'm here to hopefully share some ideas, some inspiration, some thoughts that will allow you to live a much better lifestyle here in America. I ask questions of people when I'm doing a seminar session. I say, well, okay, in America we've got a new career field, and it's usually the homeless people. And so you see quite a few of them pushing shopping carts. And I asked the audience, I said, well, who here has ever seen a homeless person but know where they can get a shopping cart? If that being the case, that would be you. Get you a shopping cart. Let's you and I go down to one of the banks. Let's go to Bank of America, Wells Fargo, one of the big banks here in downtown. And the reason that we want to do that is because we want to go into that bank to be able to get as much money as you could possibly fill up in that shopping cart. And I asked the question, how much money would you like to get? And some of them say, oh, maybe another $10,000. How about $100,000? A few days ago, one of the gentlemen in the audience say, I'd like to have multi-millions. And that's the thought that we've got. You know, we can have anything in life we want if we focus on it and don't change our mind. The big thing that will create that particular situation is the universe itself, that it will bring you whatever it is that you're focusing on. And if you need people, it will bring you people. If you need money, it will bring you money. If you need ideas, all you need is something to be able to write it down and capture those ideas on. You see, ideas is what make millionaires. And so what I'm going to do this evening is sort of put all of us on a plane so that we can go and understand. See, we were born into a situation that was already created when we got here. I asked also the question of a person, I said, well, you know, especially the ladies that are in the audience that, you know, ask if they've given birth to a child. And the ones that raised their hand, I asked the question, what did that child bring with them when they came into this environment? And most of them will tell you nothing but a whole lot of pain. And so that's the beginning of the situation. So I've got a couple of friends that work in the funeral industry. One of them drives a hearse, and I'm consistently asking him as a resident professional, has anybody ever put a U-Haul, truck, trailer, or anything on that hearse and hooked it on as they were going to the cemetery? And he has said no. And as that being the other end of the spectrum, so that when that person is making that final ride in order to get out of here, if we didn't bring anything with us when we came, and we're not taking anything with us when we leave, my job being here with you this evening is to try and share with you the best thing possible that you and I can do while we're here on this planet, and that is, what can I do that would help you live a much better lifestyle? Because you'll find that you'll have money meaning fiat money, dollar bills and so on, completely coming and going in and out of your environment. And it depends upon what you plan to do with it, because you're not going to take it with you. And something, if no one has ever had the courage to ever tell you, I will take responsibility for that job right now and let you know, nobody gets out of here alive. So we're all going to have to go through either the graveyard or through a pot that they might put your ashes in, but nobody gets out of here alive. But the big thing of it is, how can I help you live the much better lifestyle that you'd like to live? And so I want to tell you a story starting this whole process off. And what it amounted to was a family. And it was done around Christmas time. And what was happening during that Christmas event was that Mom was going to visit the married daughter that lived away from them, but she was also taking their 5-year-old son with them. So as they drove over and they were settling themselves down and started to talk about the upcoming Christmas holidays, well, what happened in that particular event was that she asked her daughter, you know, what was it that she'd like to have for Christmas and so on. Well, the one thing, she started to give her a list of items that she'd like to have, and she asked her son, well, what would you like to have? And he said, after just a moment's pause, he said, I'd like to have words, Mommy. Words, Mommy. Words so that I can understand what you and my sister are talking about. And that's going to be the one thing that I'll give you this evening, nothing more than words. Words are going to be the tools that I'll be able to share the ideas, the information, and hopefully give you the inspiration to go ahead and achieve the dreams, the thoughts, the ideas that allow you to live the dream that you've got for yourself here in America. So as I was saying, we have been taught as we have been born into this particular environment, and did you transform the environment or did you conform? The one thing that happened with it is that when you initially came into this world, you were conformed because you were dominated by parents. You were dominated probably by your siblings. You were dominated by authority figures in the school system, in the church system, in different things that you might have been exposed to. And then as you started to grow up and mature, you wanted to be a person that, hey, you wanted to do your own thinking. But what had happened is that you had been trained, you'd been educated, you had been conditioned, and you've been indoctrinated to do what you've been told to do. You were told to go to school, get a good education, so that you could build a resume, and then you'd be able to shop that resume out in the open market for a company or a corporation. And from there, you'd be able to get an ideal retirement plan that will allow you to be able to live a much better lifestyle. See, I have a lot of stories and things like that, and if you've ever had the time or taken the time to watch a series that comes on a daily basis, it's called NCIS. And this guy, Donoso, has a fluence for movies. And I use movies as tools as being able to educate not only myself but my wife, and we watch different movies over and over again as though we were two little kids that had never seen it before. Well, the one thing that happened in this particular situation was at one time the Indian agent there on the reservation came out, and, he was doing just an inspection as a government employee will do, and he just so happened to see the chief and his son sitting out there underneath the shade tree watching the river go by. And what was happening with this, he came out and he told the chief, says, Chief, we've got some ideal educational programs right now that will allow you and your son to go to college. You'll be able to go to college, get your good education, and in doing so, be able to participate in the economic system, build yourself a retirement plan, and be able to sit back and enjoy life. And the chief said, that sounds real good, but I'm doing that already. And so when you go back and you look at a lot of people will be doing ideally until they meet me. And so what normally happens is that I don't want to destroy your dreams, your thoughts, your ideas that you've got for yourself. What I want to do is to be able to enhance them. And so by doing that, I want to give you some words. I want to give you some inspiration and some information that will allow you to be able to do what it is that you want to do. You see, we've got some situations in this environment that's affecting a whole lot of people. And one thing that happens when I get to talking with people, I find that there is an environment that goes on. There's a lot of people out there that when I start to speak, they don't know what it is that I'm talking about. And then, too, there's even a larger group that don't want to know. My wife has told me on numerous occasions over the 30-some-odd years she and I have been together that I would have done a lot better not knowing. Because with the knowing comes responsibility. Are you going to do anything about it? Especially, she and I were talking this afternoon, and I pulled up to a stop sign, or at least a stop light, a traffic light. And it just so happened when I got there, the light was changing from yellow to red. Well, see, here in California, there's a situation that goes along with that. I sat there, and the entire time that I was sitting there, not one car came from the east to the west traffic flow to go through that light. But yet the light went through its cycle, and it stayed there until it was timed for it to go ahead and change. When it changed, I went ahead and made my left turn to get on the flow-through street. But the one thing that happened with this, had I made a turn while that light still was on red, I would have ran a red light. Because, see, if the difference between a red traffic light and a stop sign is that the stop sign says stop, look in both directions to see if it's a safe process, and you can go ahead and proceed. But a traffic signal does not give you that option. So the big thing that you have to look at when you're going, you've got some ideas, you got some information, and what is going to happen, because there is no defense against sound. You cannot say after listening to me that you didn't hear what you heard me say. So what we're going to do is that I want to be able to talk with you, to give you ideas, to give you information. So as I was saying, you've been trained, you've been conditioned, you've been educated to look at the thing that we call money from a perspective. And from that perspective, you've been taught to look at it. Now, I have had money troubles all of my life. All of my life. And so what I mean by saying that, all of my life. And the money troubles that I've had is I haven't had enough. I've been able to live a very nice lifestyle. I've traveled the world. The thing that comes with that is that by me saying I haven't had enough, I'm still working on my dreams, my goals, and things that I want to accomplish. And I'll be able to do that. But right now, my wife and I have reached a level of finance and a level of abundance that I don't have to get out of bed unless I want to. And there are a lot of people that would really do harm to other people just to be able to do that type of thing. But she and I have worked diligently and gone through a lot of pain in order to be able to reach that plateau as far as life is concerned. See, we were taught to go to school, get that good education. And when you go to work for somebody else, you're going to be on what at the time it was that 40-40-40 plan, which meant that that plan A that you were going to be working was 40 hours a week for 40 weeks, because you were going to get a 2-week, 40 hours a week for 50 weeks. You get a 2-week vacation, and you start the whole process all over again. But one of the things that you started to do, as I was telling the lady Saturday, I say, she was asking me what was my center point. Well, what I was looking at was telling her, hey, I grew up on the farm there in Arkansas, and I set some objectives that, hey, I didn't want to spend the rest of my life out there working in an agricultural environment. It required that you use your brawn rather than your brain. And so by realizing, as for the little education I did get while I was in that environment, that I wanted to be able to use my mind more so than my behind. And so as I started to do different things and traveling the world, and, I made 7.5 trips around the world, going to different places that money couldn't buy, and seeing things in that same concept. But the real issue around a lot of the things that I was doing was being able to reach out and help people in so many different ways. See, I've always been in the helping or solution-finding position, especially when I was in the military. That was all I did, was provided solutions for situations that came up. And so now I'm still in that same position. I'm reaching out to as many people as I possibly can that I can give some ideas to, some information, some inspiration that will allow them to live a more abundant lifestyle. So the one thing that you have to do is look at, number one, if you have gotten into a situation, here in Southern California, they've got more cars than they do people. And from about 6 o'clock in the morning to usually about maybe 9:30 or 10 o'clock, the freeways are bumper to bumper going north. And there are a lot of people that are coming in from Mexico that are working here in this environment. And then from about 2:30 until about 6:30 in the evening, they all come back and they're going south. But the thing that I'm looking at, somewhere along the line, we've got, to my awareness, 29 different colleges and universities here in the Southern California sector in the San Diego County. And in that element, you would think that a person would learn that's a losing situation. And what I mean by it being a losing situation, that if you can't figure out why would you have to work for 40 years to get to a position that you'd have X number of dollars coming in to you to allow you to live a certain lifestyle. If you're going to be able to work for 40 years just to get 40% of what you're making right now, and realizing that what you're making right now isn't enough to satisfy your lifestyle. Well, then you're going to have to do something. And that was the thing that I looked at when I was 14 years of age, that I decided that, hey, I want to be able to retire when I reach age 50. But what I was looking at, I did a massive amount of study into this thing called success, and also this word called retirement. What is it? It's something that they paint a picture of, and they tell you, because some of the states are going bankrupt right now. They're losing a lot of their benefits as far as their funding for the retirement plans. And the thing that they're doing is that the people are playing this game called recession. They're cutting back. And so way out there in your future, they've hung this thing out there they call retirement, which looks like it's the light at the end of the tunnel. And some of them have raised their retirement years for all new people coming into their system, that you're going to have to work until you get to be 67 years of age. Well, you see, one thing that I can tell you about what it is that I do, I've been associated with and dealing with a lot of people that are in the education arena, especially people that function through Nightingale Conant, this education training company there is in Chicago, one of the largest. And they'll tell you that don't listen to anyone that isn't wealthy or isn't doing what it is that you want to do. Well, see, they're leading you down a path mainly because they want to be the ones that are leading you and telling you, because they've got what they consider to be a coaching adventure that they want you to pay for. But it's the words, It's regardless of whoever is using those words. If those words are designed to and created and strung together in a format that will allow you to inspire yourself, to lead yourself, to learn from yourself. See, when I graduated from college, I could speak 27 different industrialized languages that were being taught in that school, because I was selling my way through school, selling memberships to the Alumni Association. And when you can speak the language of the people that you are interacting with, you'll be surprised how more effectively you can communicate ideas and information with that person. So the thing that you're looking at, these people that are saying don't listen to anyone that isn't wealthy already, it doesn't matter. The big thing that you have to look at is, do you believe what it is that they're telling you? You see, you could find a homeless person, or when we were growing up, we could find what they considered to be a tramp. A tramp was just an individual that was down on their luck and so on, and that was the thing. But if that person is stringing together words that have the same meaning for you, whether they come from that individual that considers themselves to be homeless or considers themselves to be a tramp, that a mega millionaire would be using, it would have the same effect, because you would believe it. But a lot of times I've talked with people, and they are looking for this belief. I'll believe it when I see it. And in actuality, what needs to be done is that if and when you believe it, then you will see it. And there's another thing that I want to tell you, because what we're talking about is planting more seeds of success so that you'll have the lifestyle that you like to live. And in this lifestyle, what we're looking at is you being able to have all of the good that this world can provide for you. You see, everything it is that you want is already here. The only thing that you'll have to do is to reach out and accept it. So when you start looking at this situation that we're dealing in right now, go back to 1929. 1929 to 1939 was what they had, that they considered the stock market to having crashed. That was because everybody was buying stocks and so on margin. But that was a design situation that took the money from this country out of circulation. And what it did is shored up the lifestyle of the people there in Britain. And so it left every man, woman, and child with nothing more than $6 to be able to function with. And prior to that, the government had told all of the farmers, because at that time we were in an agricultural environment, up until about 1900, when they discovered that there was a use for petroleum, for the oils that were being generated, that they were looking at what they do with this stuff, because they had to sort of screen it from one side to the other so that the cows could drink. And here this oil was bubbling up out of the ground. At the time, for a lighting situation, they had been using whale oil. So they found that there was a use for this petroleum that started to coming about. Now, everybody being in an agricultural environment, they were entrepreneurs. They grew most of their own food so that they could feed themselves, and the government told the farmers that were producing wheats and things to be sold all across the world that to buy as much land as you possibly can, to plant as much wheat and corn and different crops that you could so that they'd be able to sell those crops overseas. So what did these people do? They believed what the government told them, and they hocked themselves. They went to the bank to buy all of the land, to buy all of the utilities, everything that they needed in order to be able to grow these crops. Well, what happened with it, they went out there and they did that. What they were doing was selling themselves into hock. So when it came time to harvest that crop to be able to sell it overseas, the government refused to allow them to do that. And so what happened? Now the bank wanted their money. So their money was tied up in their crops that they grew that they had sitting there, but they couldn't sell them to anybody. See, these are things that you go back and you look at and you say, well, why is this country in this predicament that it's in right now? And it's because everybody has been following somebody else's path. When you go back and you look at it, have you really decided what type of lifestyle it is that you really want to live? Have you designed that lifestyle? Have you decided what type of home do you want to live in? What type of car do you want to drive? What type of education do you have? What would you like to do? What travel would you like to do? Would you like to vacation to different locations around the world? Whatever it is that you've done, have you written it down and have you decided what it's going to take in order for you to accomplish this? But the real thing, once you make a decision on, yes, I would like to do this, I'd like to find the person that would like to be able to take a vacation 8 to 10 days each and every month and going to some location around the world and be able to do that and to enjoy it. And now, see, there's a big difference when you go back and you look at the words. If I were a wealthy person and I used the word vacation, and there was someone that possibly was low income and used the same thing for word for vacation, the word vacation would mean the same thing. The only drawback to is the level of service that you wanted to support that vacation that you've got. And if you've got the money to be able to do that, then there isn't a challenge. This is why I was trying to give you the data to tell you you don't have to be wealthy in order to teach someone. When you are trying to teach how to be, do, and have more, all you have to do is to be able to plant the seeds. And when you're planting the seeds of success, you never know how long it will take for one of those seeds to germinate and produce fruit. So what I was getting at was that design the lifestyle, design the things that you want. How much would you like to give to different charities? And the one thing that you're going to have to do in order to accumulate whatever it is that you want, you've got to have some type of vehicle in order to be able to get you there. You see, selling your talents for time, for dollars, is not the equitable way in order to get where you want. Mainly, why would I say that? Because when you go back and you look at selling your time for dollars, there's only 24 hours in a day. And if you're selling your time, say, for instance, you're generating $100 an hour. Well, 8 hours a day, that's only going to generate for you $800 in that one day. Oh, sure, you'll have roughly about $3,200 if you, about $4,000 if you worked 8 hours a day, 4 weeks out of the month. Okay? And that's what that's all that you're going to get. But see, there are some traps that go into the development of this income. Why? Because when they decided that there were people that, when they decided upon the income tax, the taxes are due, or they made the taxes due when the income is earned. So they take the money out before you get it. Now you have got usually about 30%. Now you have got to try and decide how are you going to finance the rest of your lifestyle with that 70% that's left. And that's where the problem comes in. And so when you go back and you look at what's happening, there's a tax on everything it is that you do. They're trying to put a tax on the carbon monoxide, which is the air that's out there in the marketplace under the green regime. So when you go back and you look at all of the things that's taking place right now, working as an employee is not the overall equitable way to be able to do what it is that you want to do, especially if you're working for somebody else. You see, that job that you've got, you don't own it. Someone else owns it. And so by them owning that job, they can dictate at any time when they want to release you, because they're already telling you when to show up, when to take a break, when to go to lunch, when to take another break, when to go home in the evening. They tell you whether or not you can work overtime or work during the holidays. They tell you all the why, because they control that job. They own that job. And people are saying, well, oh, I want to have a business of my own. Well, if you oh, I hate to be here laughing. And it's one of those things, when you know about things like that, well, then things like that will come up. But the real issue that comes about is that when you realize what's going on, I can't think of the author's name right now, but the EMyth, and what it means in a sense is that if you're going to work for somebody else, or even if you have gone and started a business where you're working for an idiot, you're working for a fool. And so what you want to do, so my overall inspiration is that I want to give you some ideas. I want to give you a way for you to be able to generate something. Well, what I'm saying right now is that all you have to do is plant the seed once, and it will continue to produce fruit for the rest of your life. Similar to an apple tree, a pear tree, or some other type of blooming situation. But you want to have this thing working for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so when it does that, then now you can go back and you look at what you've accomplished for yourself, so that you will be able to use your mind rather than your behind. So what I've done by being here with you this evening is be able to share with you some ideas that I think will be important as to how to go about generating a lot of money. See, when you take a small amount of money, multiply it through some form of an enrollment process, multiply it, duplicate it, compound it, leverage it, and get it to a point to where you can duplicate it, then now you're getting yourself into a situation where the compounding process, that they say that the greatest thing that has ever been done was the development of the compound interest. That was a statement that was made by Albert Einstein. And so now we have to go back and look at compounding from a different perspective, because this situation that's taking place right now is by design, because what they wanted to do was to socialize the world. These are the powers that be, and by me saying they wanted to socialize the world, they realized that they could not do it with the middle class of America being in the situation that they're in right now. And so the middle class, those individuals that had the ability, they had long-term jobs, they had enough money to support their lifestyle, they had all of the things that people have been looking at. They call them, in a sense, maybe the baby boomers. And so what they did back in 1971, some events took place. Well, in 1989, events took place. The Berlin Wall came down. The nation of Russia disbanded. And also the Internet went up. When it did, it created a global entity of people that wanted to expand and become entrepreneurs rather than living in under the communist manifesto. So you go back now and you look at that same situation. You ask the question, what is it that people are doing. So in 1989, but the reason why I said 1989, because I want you to know what environment we're in right now. Prior to 1989, Richard Nixon, at that time being the president, took us off of the gold standard as a backing for all of our dollars. And what was created, we no longer had money, we had currency. Currency is similar to electricity. It's current. It flows. It moves. And my wife had a conversation with her dad yesterday, and she was just as happy because she'd been trying for years to get him to look at money from a different perspective, money from the point of view of not spending his money. And by spending, what you're actually doing is that you're allowing your money to go out there into the marketplace and you're not having any control over it. By you spending it, you're just eliminating it. You're getting rid of it. And so she's been trying for years to have him to automatically understand that what you want to do is to circulate money. Circulate money with the thought in mind that every dollar you circulate enriches the economy and it returns to you multiplied. And so in her conversation with him yesterday, he just automatically said, I got X number of dollars, I got $3,000 that I haven't circulated yet. And she was happy just to hear that. And so as she and I learn together, as we walk the path of life, being able to share ideas and information, not only from an academic perspective that we participated in, but from the readings and things that we do. I've got just 2 rooms that are full of books everywhere. She and I tease each other saying that we got piles of books. And the 2 things that you don't want to be looking for in this household. Number 1 is a book. Number 2, you don't want to be looking for a piece of paper because it's everywhere. So as we go along, so now when Nixon took the country off of the gold standard, allowed fiat money to infiltrate with everything. Well, another thing that happened as the OPEC nations were producing oil, what happened was that the oil-producing countries went to them and said, hey, we will produce your oil for you, but what you're going to have to do is to put your money in our banks. And when you put your money in our banks, they're going to do it for a certain period of time, and it's going to be your, as they call it, reserve capital. All of your reserve money that you stock up is going to be in dollars. And they say, okay, we can do that, but they didn't realize what was going on until later on. And then something came about here not long ago, was the country of Iran decided that they were not going to sell their oil and take dollars as a means of doing so. Well, China is one of the nations, Japan, and also other countries that have bought the U.S. Treasury bills. So what they have done, by buying those bills, they are using dollars in order to be able to do that. So if they decide, hey, I want to cash these Treasury bills in with a dollar that's decreasing in value, what are they going to use to get their money back? Because, see, the United States does not have any gold that it can exchange for those dollars. So when you go back now, you're looking at all of these things. And there was the country of Dubai. Dubai was one of the oil-producing nations, and what was needed by them was $80 a barrel to support the lifestyle or their infrastructure of their nation. And so everything was going along fine. Dubai is the country that has built so many different little islands out in the water. They didn't have, they designed the one hotel that looks like a sail, and it's one of the tallest buildings in the world. They used that money rather than to say, well, what can we do that would allow us to produce something that we could trade with the rest of the world. And then I'll get into this trade barriers and so on in a little bit later. But what happened was the powers that be that are controlling things throughout the rest of the world, as I start to get to know you, then what I'll do is really share with you where you can find this information, because I want you to do your own research rather than to be able to listen to me and then you wonder, well, I said that you could get it here. And if you're not responsible enough to have enough thought to go and do your own research so that you'll know, when you know what I know, that's great. But when you know where to go get what you know, then that's going to be a Blessing to you from now on. So the country of Dubai needed $80 a barrel in order to be able to support its infrastructure for the country. But the powers that be says, well, hey, they are rich over there, so what we're going to do is we're only going to offer them $60 to $70 a barrel for their oil. And so what that required them to do was getting the $60 or $70 a barrel, because the United States is the most populous country in the world, and also it consumes more oil than anyone else. So if they are saying we're going to give you $60 or $70 a barrel, it requires that they use that other 10% to support their infrastructure. They were using their reserve cash in order to pay their bills. And there are a lot of people, as I talk with friends and so on here in the area, that have got families that have come from different countries to go into Dubai and Saudi Arabia and different places to work. They have sent those people home. They've shut down their industries, got people in from all over the world coming there to work. They have built over 200 skyscrapers in the last 5 years. And so by all they're doing is using that money to pay for all of that stuff, and they're not doing anything on an inside basis to build their own awareness to how can we do this, how can we produce something that will allow that to happen. Well, what's happening right now throughout America is that they, starting in 1913, 1919, 1933, they started with the different presidents dropping trade barriers. Well, trade barriers were a requirement that anybody that wanted to come into this country and sell their products and their services, they had to pay a fee in order to be able to do so. Well, what happened with that was that the country at the time, before they started lowering the trade barriers, they had $9 billion in surplus money that was just set aside because of the people who wanted to come here and trade. But what they did, so by reducing things down to the point where they didn't have to pay a fee in order to bring their products and services into this country, everybody and his uncle decided, hey, all they had to do was just come here and put their products on the shelf. Well, what happened in that scenario was that a lot of the companies that are right here in America right now have moved their corporate offices offshore. That may not it being an American company, but it's an offshore company. And the other thing that has happened, they have outsourced the manufacturing of products and services that they want to bring into this country. Well, things that have brought that about is that the United States have so many EPA, environmental protection agencies and associations and laws that you have to abide by, that the manufacturers really don't want to be going through all of those changes just to produce something. And it came about when on the Clinton administration, when Hunt Tomato had to abide by the labeling process. Well, they realized that it was going to be an enormous expense to be able to make out just another label with the equipment, with everything it was that they had to do in order to meet the government requirements. But what they did realize is say, hey, we can outsource this. So they started looking at outsourcing everything. You know, they outsourced the bottle that the ketchup was going in. They outsourced the ingredients. They everything did about it. And they realized that all they owned for Hunt Tomato was just a label, because they outsourced everything. They outsourced the growing of the tomatoes. You know, everything that was being done, they did it through outsourcing. And so now you've got a lot of companies and things like that, because when 1974 came about and they required that employees, it was a defined benefit plan that they were making a contribution to, into making their own decisions about. They brought out the regular old IRA, and then they brought out the Roth IRA. And there's some distinctive differences that go into that process. But the big thing about it is that now the employees are going to be gambling on the stock market based upon their futures. So what they have done is that they have taken and allowed themselves to be gambling out there with their future in the stock market. Well, when you go back and you start looking at what's happening right now, what happened with Dubai. Dubai went bankrupt. They couldn't afford to pay their bills. When they did, it created a domino effect. Right now, the last information that I had, Greece was one of those entities that was out there that's going down the tubes. Everybody wanted to blame Madoff for Bernie Madoff for the situation that he had. They classified it as being a Ponzi scheme. And this guy had been doing this same thing for roughly about 40-some-odd years. And it just got completely out of control. And so if you really start to look at things as to what's going on right now, you won't find a bigger Ponzi scheme anywhere that surpasses the Social Security Administration. That's the biggest Ponzi scheme that's going on anywhere. And so there are a lot of things that are taking place that people don't know about. And then, as I said earlier, there are those people out there that don't want to know. So now the big issue around yourself, what is it that you want to be? What is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to have? I made that choice when I was roughly 14 years of age. And in order to get out of that agricultural environment, I made the choice that I joined the military. And from there, I tease people when I say that, hey, this guy come by and he says, if you go to live with my rich uncle, hey, he'll show you the world. And I say, okay, hey, I think maybe I like that. And so I did. I've made trips all around the world, and I've been places and seen things, as I indicated, that money won't buy. But my real process right now is that how can I take what I've learned through my travels, through my education, through the things that I watch right now go on, to be able to help you do a much better job of living your life and also taking care of your family if you've got one. Because as I said earlier, you're not going to get out of here alive. And when you do, you're not going to take anything with you. A lot of people that have achieved a certain level of awareness have tried to control things from the grave, especially people that are considered to be affluent, with trust funds and different things like that. So now the big thing that's coming toward us right now is how can I help you get to where you want to go? And so the real thing of it is right now, if you've got money coming in, I was listening to this one lady that was playing the game of homeless as a panhandler, and she said she averages about $75 a day, and she's been doing that for over 20 years, simply by asking people to give her money. And so you'll find that people are out there doing that type of activity. This is what they're actually doing. So my thoughts are that I hope that I've given you something that you can look forward to. And as I said, when the United States was taken off of the gold standard, when 1974 came about and everybody was supposed to go out there and create their own retirement plan right now, the United States is outsourcing so many different things. Companies are going and outsourcing their products and services to be manufactured someplace else. The biggest one that's doing that type of activity is Walmart. They're the largest retailer that's in this country. And so when you are realizing that and look at that, there are no long-term jobs. There's no jobs that you can say that you're going to have and work that job for the next 10, 15, 20 years. If you're 40, 50, 60 years of age right now, when are you going to retire? Well, what do you mean by retire? What does that word retire mean? When I left the military, they considered my leaving as being a part of the transfer to the Fleet Reserve. Well, the other thing that took place in that scenario, after 10 years, then they considered me to be retired, which would have meant 30. But the thing that happened, they told me in a retirement ceremony that people only live 5 to 7 years after they retire from the military. And I made it a point there as a promise to myself that I would never retire to sit back and to do nothing and allow my body to atrophy and just dwindle away as nothing. So I made the choice in mind that I would always be doing something that required me to stimulate my mind, that will allow me to get up and do different things. So as I was saying, the real issue around a lot of things that it is that I want to do is based upon my ability to be able to do that. So my issue in being here with you today is to hopefully, if you've got the time right now, to give me a call back and to ask some questions about some of the things that I'm doing. But don't put your faith in this thing called money, because if you've heard the word Amaros is supposed to be the new currency that's supposed to be produced. And when you've got the powers that be through the Club of Rome and the Committee of 300 controlling things, and see, this is where, if you really want to know what is taking place, send me an email at seedsofsuccess@sosuccess@yahoo.com, and then I can start a dialogue with you. But if you were to log on to what we're doing right now, I could sort of satisfy that requirement with you. But hopefully over this 45 minutes that you and I have been here together, that I've given you some ideas. I've given you something to think about. Where are you going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Go back and look at your lifestyle. If you don't change anything it is that you're doing right now, what is the next 5 years going to be looking like? And that's something for you to consider in detail. So this is Bob Hendricks with Money Talks, planting more seeds of success. And the thought of it is, hopefully I've planted some that will allow you to be able to live the better lifestyle that you've forecasted for yourself. Rather than to say right now that you got it as a wish, why not make it a promise and to follow a vehicle that will allow you to get where it is that you want to go. I'm looking forward to being right here at the same time, sometime in the month of July. I'll go ahead and create my schedule and be able to do that for you. And this evening I say, plant more seeds of success. Good night.